Have you ever felt a love that seemed to drain the very light from your soul? A connection that, instead of building you up, slowly, almost imperceptibly, dismantled the very essence of who you are. You question your own sanity, your own memories, your own worth, all while believing you are in the presence of a profound, if troubled, love. This is not a sign of your weakness. It is the signature of a deeply insidious spiritual warfare, a covert battle for your very life force. It is the art of the soul vampire, the covert narcissist, whose greatest weapon is the illusion of love itself. If this deep, unsettling resonance vibrates within your spirit, know that you have found a sanctuary here. This is your awakening. This is your validation. Subscribe and let us walk this sacred path of reclamation together. Share your truth in the comments below by typing, "I am seeing clearly now," and feel the divine power of a community that truly understands. You must understand. She did not love you in the way a soul connects with another. She did not see your light and wish to stand beside it. She saw your light and wished to consume it. From the very beginning, it was an observation, a meticulous study of your spiritual anatomy. Every reaction you had was a data point, every vulnerability a password, every moment of empathy a key to the control panel of your soul. She memorized the blueprint of your heart, not to cherish it, but to find its weakest points, its load-bearing walls, its hidden chambers of doubt and hope. She turned your divine gift of empathy, your ability to feel deeply, into the very instrument of your own imprisonment. It was a masterful, devastating campaign of psychological espionage, conducted under the guise of the most intimate connection you had ever known. She knew precisely what story to weave to capture your spirit. Was it a tale of past betrayals, of a world that had never understood her fragile, beautiful soul? Did she paint herself as a victim, a misunderstood angel in a world of brutes, making you feel like the first and only one to ever truly see her? Your masculine instinct, your divine drive to protect, to provide, to heal, was activated. You leaned in, your heart swelling with a noble purpose. You wanted to be her savior, her knight, her sanctuary from the storm. You felt chosen, uniquely qualified to mend her broken wings. But understand this profound truth. This was never about connection. It was never about a sacred union of two souls. From the very first moment, it was about control. That tear-filled confession in the middle of the night, those whispered words, "You're the only one I've ever been able to trust." That was not the birth of love. That was the casting of a powerful spell. That was the setup. She built an illusion of intimacy with breathtaking speed. It was a whirlwind, an emotional tempest designed to bypass all your logical defenses. The intensity of the connection felt like a sign from the universe, a fated encounter. But its true purpose was to overwhelm your intuition, your gut feeling, that quiet inner voice that may have been whispering that something was profoundly wrong. She needed to get you emotionally high, fast, so you would become addicted to the feeling addicted to her. This addiction made you bypass your own inner guidance system, making you crave the very poison that was slowly destroying your spirit. What you perceived as her beautiful raw vulnerability was, in fact, a carefully manufactured weakness, a performance designed to disarm you. What you believed was the foundation of trust was nothing more than strategic storytelling, a script written specifically for an audience of one, you. The love you thought you were building was a psychological prison, and she tricked you into building it yourself, brick by brick, with your own guilt and your own hope. By the time the walls were so high you could no longer see the sun, it was too late. The chilling realization dawns. You were not just in love with her, you were in love with the project of fixing her. This is not a simple story of heartbreak. This is a story of covert psychological warfare, an insidious campaign disguised as affection. And this silent, soul-crushing war is waged more commonly than you could ever imagine. In this moment, we are not merely exposing the tactics of a spiritual predator. We are breaking the spell she cast upon your mind and your heart. If any part of this sacred testimony feels uncomfortably familiar, know this with every fiber of your being. You are not alone. What you have endured is not a reflection of your weakness. It is a testament to your strength that you survived a masterclass in psychological manipulation, a performance so convincing it was crafted to look, feel, and taste exactly like love. And once you truly learn to see it, once your eyes are open to this divine truth, you can never, ever unsee it. Stay with me, for in the next few moments, we will illuminate every hidden tactic, every silent weapon, every reason why the pain you now carry was never, ever your fault. If you value emotional truth, if you seek to understand the dark arts of human connection to protect your own sacred energy, then subscribe now. Let us rebuild your divine strength together. You see, you were never taught to see her coming. Society's warnings are for the loud ones, the flamboyant, arrogant narcissists who announce their presence like a thunderstorm. They shout, they demand, they explode. Their toxicity is overt, a flashing red light. But the most dangerous kind, the covert predator, does not raise her voice. She whispers. She enters your life like a gentle mist, embodying everything your soul has ever yearned for. Soft, thoughtful, fragile. She does not dominate a room, she disarms it. She does not talk over you. She listens with such profound, focused intensity that you feel seen and understood in a way you have never felt before. This is her first and most potent weapon. She doesn't take power by force. She masterfully manipulates you into giving it to her willingly, eagerly, believing it is your own noble choice. This is not the narcissist you've read about in self-help blogs. This is the master of mirrors, the one who hides behind a facade of your own reflected needs. She becomes a perfect echo of your deepest desires. Like a dream, she senses your soul's deepest cravings. You crave peace, and so she becomes a gentle, calming presence. You long for emotional depth, and so she opens up about her supposed wounds with a tragic, poetic grace. You are tired of the shallow, surface-level connections of the modern world, so she paints herself as a rare, old soul, different from all the rest. She studies you like a mirror, absorbing every detail of your essence, and then becomes the very thing you are most desperate to find. But here is the devastating truth you must embrace. It's not real. It is not who she is. It is who you needed her to be. This is precisely how covert manipulation works. It does not push against your boundaries. It slides beneath them, undetected. It bypasses logic, it skips over red flags, and it goes straight for the emotional core of your being. Because when someone appears to bleed in front of you, offering you their most painful wounds, your instinct is not to question them, it is to rescue them. And the moment you step into the role of the rescuer, you stop realizing you are actually being robbed. That intoxicating early rush you felt, that deep emotional high, was not love. It was psychological bait. It was a vulnerability trap, meticulously designed to feel sacred, to feel like a soul contract, all while binding you to someone who never, ever intended to heal, only to feed. And by the time you begin to question her, to doubt the narrative, you have already convinced yourself of her innocence. You tell yourself she's just misunderstood, that she's been through so much, that she just needs more time, more patience, more of you. But it's not her wounds you are protecting. It's your own belief that what you felt, what you invested, was real. Her primary weapon is what we must call manufactured vulnerability. She did not wait weeks or months to build the trust required to share her deepest secrets. No, it started early, perhaps in the second or third conversation. It came with tears in her voice, a trembling confession, a heartbreaking story of betrayal, of childhood wounds, of the monsters who hurt her. And in that sacred, vulnerable moment, your heart did something incredibly dangerous. It opened. It opened not because she asked, but because she bled. This is the cornerstone of how manufactured vulnerability works. It is not the slow, organic unfolding of real emotional intimacy. It is a calculated shortcut, one that skips the essential stages of building trust, of spending time, of sharing mutual experiences. Instead, it forces a profound sense of closeness through shared pain, her supposed pain. She didn't share those stories with you because she trusted you. She shared them because she wanted you hooked. Most healthy individuals wait to share their deepest scars. They need to feel a foundation of safety and mutual respect. But she knows that when she bleeds early, your divine masculine energy will rush to bandage her. In doing so, you will lower all your defenses. You will stop analyzing. You will stop observing. You will start protecting. You thought you were being let into her most sacred inner sanctum. The truth is, you weren't being let in. You were being recruited. Recruited to heal her, to prove you're different from all the others, to earn the sweet, broken, needy version of her that only shows up in fleeting glimpses. But what you failed to see was the subtle shift. You weren't falling in love. You were stepping into a pre-assigned role, the role of the wounded healer. The great psychologist Carl Jung wrote extensively about this archetype, the one who tries to heal others to avoid facing his own pain, the one who believes he is saving someone but is actually losing himself. The covert narcissist knows how to exploit this role perfectly. She hands you her wounds, not to heal, but for you to own. And now, when she lashes out, it's excused by her trauma. When she disappears emotionally, it's a symptom of her past. When she crosses your boundaries, it becomes your job to understand her pain. You are no longer dating her, you are justifying her. And here is the most cruel and twisted part of the deception. None of the stories she told you may have been outright lies. They may be real, and that is precisely what makes them so much more convincing. But their purpose is not connection. Their purpose is leverage. You are not building a relationship. You are inheriting a case file, a dossier of past traumas that absolves her of all accountability and makes you responsible for every emotional explosion that follows. This is not vulnerability. It is weaponized storytelling, and it is only the beginning of her campaign. Her second weapon is the deployment of emotional hostage tactics. At first, her emotions felt raw, unfiltered, beautifully human. You told yourself she was just sensitive, perhaps even exquisitely so. But soon, that sensitivity began to turn your life into an emotional minefield. You never knew what would set her off. A glance at your phone that lasted a second too long, a delayed reply to a text, a subtle change in your tone of voice. Suddenly, she would be crying, or worse, she would fall into a chilling, impenetrable silence, trembling with a disappointment she refused to articulate. At first, you rushed to fix it. You are a good man, and that is what you were taught to do. Protect her, soothe her, take responsibility. But this was never a normal emotional dynamic. This was emotional hostage-taking. And whether you realized it at the time or not, you were already negotiating with a psychological terrorist. These were not reactions, they were tactics. The covert narcissist learns early in life that emotions are not just expressions, they are tools. A well-timed tear can buy forgiveness. A sudden emotional breakdown can reset the blame. A quiet, punishing withdrawal can starve you of affection until you crawl back, begging for forgiveness for a crime you never even committed. You are not in a relationship anymore. You are trapped inside a system, a cruel emotional ecosystem where her states of being determine your behavior, and your peace depends entirely and exclusively on her approval. So you adapt. You start shrinking yourself. You speak softer. You avoid certain topics. You begin to predict her moods like a meteorologist predicts weather patterns. You become fluent in her emotional language, even when it directly contradicts itself. And here is the worst part, the part that cuts the deepest. You begin to believe that you are the problem. That is the true genius of these emotional hostage tactics. They flip the frame of reality. If she's upset, you must have done something to cause it. If she's distant, you must be failing her in some way. If she's cold, you must not be trying hard enough. But none of it is true. Because what you are dealing with is not love. It is a meticulously designed system of control, wrapped in the convincing disguise of emotional intimacy. And the more masculine, the more protective you are, the more you feel the divine urge to shield her, to fix her, to make her happy, the deeper the trap becomes. She doesn't overpower you directly. She makes you overpower yourself. Her pain becomes your mission. Her moods become your responsibility. Her instability becomes your full-time job. And it is never ever enough. No matter how many emotional fires you put out, she will always light new ones. Not because she wants peace, but because the fire is where she feels powerful. This is how the covert narcissist breaks the strongest of men, not by confronting them, but by convincing them that their true strength lies in saving her, even if it destroys them in the process. Her third weapon is the mastery of gaslighting and reality rewriting. She does not scream at you, she does not debate you, she does not even fight fair, because she does not need to. She simply rewrites reality, one subtle conversation at a time. You say, "But you promised you would," and she replies with a calm, almost pitying look. "I never said that. You must be remembering it wrong." You recall a moment with crystal clarity, and she insists it happened differently, with a confidence so absolute it makes you question your own mind. The more certain you are of your truth, the more calm and confident she becomes in her version of events. That is when you feel it, not anger, not confusion, but something far worse: doubt. A corrosive doubt that begins to eat away at the very foundations of your perception. Gaslighting doesn't come with sirens and alarms. It comes dressed as reason. It whispers, "You're overreacting." It suggests, "You always twist things." It concludes, "Maybe you're just too sensitive." At first, you defend yourself. You present the evidence. You argue your case. But slowly, subtly, you begin defending her version of you instead of your own. You stop trusting your instincts. You question your own memories. You analyze your tone, your motives, your truth. And what she says begins to matter more than what you feel. This is how the erosion of your identity begins, not in one big dramatic moment, but in thousands of tiny, imperceptible edits, moments where your reality was rewritten to protect hers. Eventually, you split into two people. There's the version of you that feels, that knows something is wrong, and then there's the version of you that performs, that adapts, because your real emotions have become too dangerous to express. So you adapted. You entered a state of psychological survival, nodding to avoid conflict, agreeing to avoid madness, smiling while you were dying inside. This isn't sensitivity. This is strategic psychological warfare. And Carl Jung warned us about this. He said, "What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size." But the covert narcissist doesn't just resist her own shadow, she outsources it. She denies her guilt and makes you carry it. She suppresses her shame and buries you under it. She cannot face her own darkness, so she paints it onto the people who love her most. You start reacting like her, thinking like her, apologizing for things you didn't even do, because she has made you the villain in a story you never agreed to be in. And that is the final, devastating stage of gaslighting. You begin to police yourself. You don't just walk on eggshells. You become the one who lays them down. Her silence becomes truth. Her perception becomes law. And your own mind becomes the prison she never had to build, because you constructed it for her, brick by brick, lie by lie. Her fourth weapon is performance addiction. In the beginning, her praise felt like magic. A soft smile after you said the perfect compliment, the way her eyes lit up when you did the right thing, the sudden, intoxicating warmth after hours, or even days, of emotional coldness. You started to crave it. You started to need it. But here's the trap. She wasn't giving you love. She was giving you permission to feel worthy. And just like that, you were on stage, auditioning every single day for the role of good enough. This is performance addiction, the psychological loop where love becomes a reward, not a right. Where affection is given sporadically, strategically, just enough to keep you chasing it. You become addicted to the highs because the lows feel like unbearable punishment. And you will do anything, say anything, be anything to get back to that moment when you were finally seen, finally valued. But here is the divine truth you must reclaim. You were never being seen. You were being evaluated. Her standards shift constantly and without warning. What made her smile yesterday earns you a cold silence today. What felt like progress in the relationship becomes a catastrophic failure by morning. She keeps moving the target, because if you ever actually hit it, the game would end. And she doesn't want love. She wants control. Control disguised as admiration. Control disguised as growth. Control disguised as your desire to be a better man for her. You start thinking, if I just listen more, if I just improve this one thing, if I just stop making her upset, then maybe, just maybe, she'll love me like she did at the start. But here's the psychological trick. She never did. The approval was always bait. And now you are trapped in a loop of self-erasure, constantly changing yourself not to hurt her, but to win her back, a version of her that only exists in your memory and only reappears when she wants something from you. She doesn't offer love. She offers glimpses of it, just enough to reset your hope, just enough to keep you investing your energy, your time, your very soul. And over time, you don't even realize what has happened. You are not a partner anymore. You are a performer in an invisible, unending audition, desperately trying to earn what should have been given freely and unconditionally. You dress differently, you speak differently, you even think differently, all to meet standards that change like shadows on a wall. And here is the psychological wound that cuts deepest. You start believing that this is what love is supposed to feel like. Hard, unpredictable, earned, but it is not. Love that has to be performed for is not love. It is control, sugar-coated invalidation. And the longer you stay on that stage, the more you forget who you were before the performance began. Her fifth weapon is the emotional blackmail economy. You did not just become her partner, you became her emotional butler, her therapist, her crisis manager, her personal pain sponge. But when the time came for her to be there for you, what happened? Suddenly, she was too tired, too busy, too overwhelmed. You learned very quickly that her emotions mattered, and yours were an inconvenience. This is the emotional blackmail economy, a system where you are expected to give endlessly, and she gives only strategically. It's a place where your emotional labor is demanded, but hers is always on hold, reserved for a time that never comes. She demands that you show up fully, listen deeply, and support her through every storm, no matter how self-created. But when you are the one who is hurt, when you are tired, when you need space or comfort or care, you are met with accusations. You're being too sensitive, you're too dramatic, you're not being supportive enough. And then she delivers the final, devastating blow, the sentence that is a loaded weapon. If you really loved me, you would. That sentence does not ask, it accuses. It makes your devotion feel conditional, as if love is proven not by truth, but by sacrifice. So you start doing things that go against your own values. You break your own boundaries. You silence your own voice. Not out of love, but out of fear. Fear of being seen as cold, selfish, or not enough. But this isn't love, it's emotional extortion. You become so accustomed to carrying her pain that you start feeling guilty for having any of your own. You begin to believe that your needs are immature, that emotional starvation is actually a sign of emotional maturity. That being the bigger person means dying quietly inside. But here is the truth that no one tells you. Love is not supposed to feel like servitude. Needing support does not make you weak, it makes you human. The covert narcissist flips the emotional script. She paints herself as self-aware and constantly evolving, while secretly training you to feel ashamed of your own emotions. She doesn't just ignore your pain, she reframes it. When you are sad, you are guilt-tripping her. When you are angry, you are being abusive. When you go quiet, you are punishing her. When you finally open up and express a need, you are being too much. Slowly, you begin to self-abandon. You hide your sadness. You bury your frustration, you mute your joy, because your emotional truth has been recast as a direct threat to the relationship. You become emotionally independent, not because you have grown, but because you have given up. And that is the final tragic layer of this emotional slavery. You don't just carry her emotional world, you start pretending yours doesn't even exist, all while telling yourself this is what it means to be strong. This is what it takes to love someone who is broken. But real strength is not staying in a system that erases you. It is recognizing when love has become labor, and choosing to walk out of the emotional prison you were never meant to live in. Her sixth weapon is confidence assassination. She never called you stupid. She never said you were incompetent. She didn't have to. Instead, she asked small, insidious questions. She offered better ways to do the things you were already good at. She made subtle suggestions wrapped in a cloak of deep concern. At first, it felt like help. It felt like teamwork. But over time, it started to feel like a constant, low-grade examination. Suddenly, you weren't deciding anything on your own. Every choice, no matter how small, became subject to her input. What you wore, how you spoke, the way you handled situations you have been handling your entire life. She would smile gently and say, "I'm just trying to help," or worse, "I know you mean well, but..." And those words, laced with quiet, corrosive doubt, began to eat away at your very identity. You used to feel confident, competent, capable. Now, you second-guess your own judgment. You hesitate before acting. You seek her opinion not out of respect, but out of a deep-seated fear of getting it wrong again. This is what I call confidence assassination, a slow, calculated erosion of your self-trust, disguised as emotional partnership. It doesn't look like control, it looks like care. She positions herself as the one with better insight, better instincts, better emotional awareness. You, in turn, become the perpetual student, forever learning how to be better in her eyes. But the goalposts are always moving, and with every correction, every gentle suggestion, your masculine identity, your sense of agency, shrinks. Masculinity isn't just about toughness, it's about agency, direction, the sacred belief that you can trust your gut and lead your own life. But under her subtle influence, that self-trust rots away. You start believing that her way is always superior, that her emotional read on a situation is more accurate, that her feedback is the ultimate truth. So now you ask before acting, you wait for approval. You check in before making decisions, even the small ones you used to make on instinct, not because you want to, but because she has trained you to doubt yourself. And that is how she wins. Not by breaking you loudly, but by convincing you to break yourself quietly. You stop taking risks. You stop standing tall. You stop speaking with certainty, because the moment you began to seek her approval for who you already were was the moment she started rewriting your definition of strength. Her seventh weapon is the isolation protocol. She never told you to cut off your friends. She never said you couldn't see your family. She didn't have to. Because every time you did, she made you pay for it emotionally. Maybe she got unusually quiet after you came home from a night out with your friends. Maybe she sent you a sad, cryptic text while you were at a family gathering. Maybe she started a fight the moment you walked back through the door. At first, you thought it was just a coincidence, just bad emotional timing. But eventually, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Every external connection came with a cost, a subtle emotional price you had to pay. She would say things like, "They don't really support us," or "I just feel like they don't like me," or the classic, "You act different when you're around them." These were not threats. They were carefully planted seeds of guilt. They were not commands. They were emotional tripwires. This is how isolation begins, not with overt control, but with manufactured emotional consequences. You start choosing peace over connection. You start avoiding drama by avoiding people. You find yourself skipping hangouts, canceling plans, not because you want to, but because the emotional tax is just too high. Over time, she becomes your only source of validation, the only one who gets you, the only one who truly understands your heart. And that's because she has already rewritten your sense of reality. You forget how much you used to laugh with your friends. You forget the feeling of safety you once felt around your family. Because those vital roots to your true self were slowly, silently cut away, not by force, but by her framing them as direct threats to your sacred bond. And once she is your entire emotional world, she no longer has to work to control you, because the world outside of her feels unfamiliar, unwelcoming, and dangerous. You did not isolate yourself. You were trained to, gently, strategically, and repeatedly. And by the time you realize how truly alone you are, you're already afraid of reaching out. Not just because of her, but because of the shame she has installed in you for needing anyone but her. Her final and most devastating weapon is the guilt machine, powered by hope addiction. She does not ask for repayment for her sacrifices. She just keeps a ledger, an invisible, but always open ledger. It's a running total of all the compromises she's made for you, every favor she has ever done, every emotional wound she claims to have endured for your sake. And whenever you bring up your own needs, she silently flips that ledger open and reads you the debt. After everything I've done for you, you wouldn't even try to understand me. Or, I gave you all of me, and you're still not happy. This is the guilt machine. And once you're inside it, every boundary you try to set feels selfish. Every need you express becomes ungrateful. Every attempt to breathe feels like a betrayal. What makes it even worse is her memory. She forgets everything you gave, everything you sacrificed, all the ways you bent, broke, and bled to keep her stable. But she amplifies every tiny thing she's ever done for you. A compliment from last month, a small favor, a fleeting moment of warmth after days of cold silence. These are now held up like sacred offerings that should cancel out all of your pain. So, you stop asking. You stop needing. You stop keeping score. But she never does. And here is where the real trap begins. You stay for the highs, for the moments when she softens, when she smiles, when she holds you, when she seems human again. Those moments feel like heaven because they only arrive after you have walked through hell. This is hope addiction, the psychological loop where your brain latches on to rare, intermittent rewards and convinces you that they are proof that love is still possible. But they are not proof. They are crumbs. And she knows it, because if she gave you that affection consistently, you would stop performing. You would stop chasing. You would realize you were starving the whole time. So she rations it, not out of malice, but because scarcity makes control easier. And that is the most twisted part of all. The thing keeping you here is not the pain. It's the belief that maybe, just maybe, tomorrow she will be the woman you saw at the start. But she never was, and she never will be. Because hope isn't love. It's the leash you have been taught to wear. At some point in this devastating dance, you stop existing as a person and start functioning as an emotional appliance. Always on, always available, but no longer seen, no longer needed, just there to respond, to absorb, to perform. Your needs, your dreams, your very self start to feel like threats to the relationship. Every time you express pain, she pulls away. Every time you ask for support, the air in the room tightens. So you adapt. You go silent. You start calling your own boundaries selfish. You start believing your feelings are problems to be fixed, not truths to be honored. And this is when the real collapse begins. Not loud, not dramatic, but quiet, subtle, like a soul folding in on itself. You feel guilt for wanting love, confusion about your own reactions, and a deep self-hate for not being strong enough to make her happy. But none of it is yours. It was installed in you, line by line, moment by moment, until your internal compass no longer points to you. The great Carl Jung called it individuation, the lifelong sacred process of becoming whole, of becoming yourself. But what happens in this dynamic is its opposite, a dark reversal. You aren't becoming more you. You are becoming more of what she needs you to be. And what she needs is not a partner. It's a tool, a function, a mirror that reflects her and nothing else. And by the time you realize you have completely disappeared, you are not even sure what you looked like before you started fading. You cannot fix her, because she was never looking to be healed, only held in control. Her psyche is not broken. It is built this way, designed to feed on connection, not nurture it to extract emotion, not share it. And the more you try to help her, the deeper you disappear into her void. That is the hardest truth of all. Love will not save her, and your sacrifice will only destroy you. Because your freedom does not begin when she changes. It begins when you stop participating. It begins when you stop playing the hero, when you stop chasing the high, when you stop accepting emotional crumbs and calling it a connection. This is called emotional sovereignty, the divine power to feel, think, choose, and heal without waiting for her permission. It means your pain is valid, your needs are not excessive, and your boundaries are not flaws. They are the shape of your soul trying to stand again, and you must let it. Because the goal is not to become her rescuer, but to reclaim the warrior inside you that she worked so hard to silence. Not the man who fixed her, but the man who remembered himself. The man who walked out of the fog, who looked at the wreckage and still chose to rebuild. Because your power was never in fixing her. It was in finally, divinely, choosing you. The shadow that you refuse to face will rise up and destroy you. But in this case, it was never your shadow. It was hers, and she projected it onto you, so you would carry the weight she refused to face. Now, it is time to set it down. It is time to reclaim your center, to heal without shame, and to rise, not as a man broken by a false love, but as a soul reborn through clarity. If this sacred knowledge has spoken to a truth inside you, subscribe, not just for content, but for truth, because your healing started the moment you saw clearly. Now, keep going.